Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into a topic I know a lot of you are fascinated by, astral projection.
hmm
It's this idea that you can have an out-of-body experience. You can consciously sort of separate from your physical self. And we've got some awesome source material to work with today. We've got historical stuff. We've got people's personal stories. We've got different techniques, even a whole FAQ section. So let's break it all down and see if we can understand, what this astral projection thing is all about, what people experience, and why it matters.
One of the things that I found really interesting was that a lot of the material you sent uses the terms astral projection, out-of-body experiences, OVACs, and even near-death experiences, NDEs,
Hmm.
almost interchangeably.
Yeah. They all revolve around that core concept of your consciousness existing outside of your body.
Yeah, that's it.
So, okay, let's start with a little grounding. You mentioned the historical context. I mean, this isn't just some like new age fad, is it?
No, not at all. In fact, some of your sources mention the ancient Egyptian Ka, the Tibetan Bardo body, the Greek concept of the double body, and there are even hints of OBEs in the Bible. It's fascinating to see how this idea pops up across cultures and time periods.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if there's something kind of fundamentally human about this desire to, explore consciousness beyond the physical realm.
For sure.
So with all that history behind us, now I bet you're ready to hear about how people actually do this, right? Like, how do you trigger an OBE?
I think that's the next logical step. Your sources outline a number of different techniques, and it seems like there's no single method that's guaranteed to work for everyone. But one that I thought was pretty interesting is the rope technique. Have you heard of that
A
one?
rope technique, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the one where you imagine a rope hanging above you and you use that to basically climb out of your body, right?
that's it. It really emphasizes visualization, using your mind to try to separate your astral body from your physical one, whether it works or not. While the sources are a bit mixed on that.
Makes sense. I mean, if it were that easy, we'd all be doing this, on our coffee breaks.
Yeah.
Another technique that seems pretty popular is the watch yourself go to sleep technique.
Ah.
Yes.
That one's more about cultivating a heightened awareness as you're falling asleep. So instead of just letting yourself drift off, you pay really close attention to your bodily sensations and any signs that you might be, on the verge of an OBE. And some people find that to be quite helpful.
It's almost like mindfulness meets astral travel. All right, one last technique I want to touch on. And this one sounds kind of like straight out of Inception, the jump technique.
It does, doesn't it? It plays with the idea of being lucid in your dreams. So you train yourself to jump in your dreams, and if you float, you're probably dreaming. And then from there, some people believe that you can transition into an OBE.
I love that there's this link between dreams and lucidity and astral projection. It speaks to how fluid our consciousness can really be. But okay, let's get to the good stuff. What do people actually experience during these OBEs? I mean, the source material is just jam-packed with personal stories.
It is. And while each experience is unique, there are some common threads. For instance, a lot of people report experiencing pre-projection phenomena before the OBE actually kicks in.
Pre-projection phenomena. Okay, break that down for us. What kind of sensations are we talking about here?
Well, one that comes up a lot is vibrations, this feeling of tingling or buzzing energy running through the body. Some people describe it as subtle, others say it feels very intense, but it's often seen as a sign that an OBE is about to happen.
I've heard of that one. What about sleep paralysis? That's another one that gets mentioned a lot. That one sounds kind of scary.
It can be, especially if you don't know what's going on. It basically means that your mind wakes up before your body, so you're fully conscious, but you can't move. And while it can be a little unnerving, it's often considered a prime state for inducing an OBE because your physical body is already so relaxed.
Yeah, it's like your body is saying, okay, I'm tapping out. You're on your own consciousness. What else is in this pre-show sensorama?
Hypnagogic hallucinations are pretty common too. These are vivid, sensory experiences that happen as you're drifting off to sleep. You might hear voices, you might see geometric patterns, even have like full-blown visions. It's like dipping your toes into the dream world, before you fully enter it.
So we've got the vibrations, the paralysis, the hallucinations. It's quite the sensory roller coaster before you even leave your body. So what happens once you're actually out? I mean, what do people describe experiencing during the OBE itself?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Some people describe floating above their body. Others talk about flying or moving through solid objects, even visiting faraway places. There are accounts of people encountering other beings, too.
Ooh, okay, you got to give us some details here. What are some of the most common or just mind-blowing sensations that people describe?
One of the most consistent themes is the exhilaration of flying or floating, this feeling of weightlessness and complete freedom of movement. And it's often accompanied by this, like, sense of euphoria. People just describe feeling incredible joy.
Sounds amazing.
Ah.
Like the ultimate dream come true. What else?
Another common one is a sense of duality. So people are aware of their physical body lying there, but they're also aware of their astral form kind of moving around. It's like this strange dual consciousness that really challenges how we think about perception.
Wow, that must be a trip. What other intriguing details have you come across in these personal accounts?
A lot of people talk about visiting loved ones, whether they're still alive or have passed away. There are also accounts of exploring unfamiliar places, even other planets or dimensions. It's like time and space become much more fluid in the astral realm.
This is all so fascinating. Okay, so what about this idea of the silver cord? It sounds kind of eerie, but a lot of the source material suggests that it's actually a safety feature.
Yes, it's often described as a luminous elastic cord that connects the astral body to the physical body. And it's thought to be an energetic link that keeps you from getting, lost during an OBE, and it ensures that you can return safely. Think of it like a cosmic bungee cord.
So no danger of getting stranded in the astral plane then.
That seems to be the general consensus. The silver cord serves as this reassuring symbol of the connection between our physical and non-physical selves.
Okay, so we've covered the history, the techniques, what people generally experience during an OBE, but I think now the big question becomes, why does this matter? What are the potential benefits of learning to have these out-of-body experiences? What can you actually gain from this?
That's really the core of it, right? The source material seems to suggest a few key areas where people report potential benefits: self-discovery, healing, and even facing the fear of death.
Okay, that's pretty profound stuff. Let's start with self-discovery. How does astral projection tie into that?
Well, a lot of the personal accounts describe having these OBs as a way to gain insight into their own, their psyche, their beliefs, their fears, their desires. It's like stepping outside of yourself and getting this fresh perspective on your life and your place in the universe. And it's not always about some like big dramatic revelation. Sometimes it's the more subtle shifts in understanding that can be the most impactful.
Yeah. So not necessarily about getting all the answers, but maybe just asking better questions, like getting a whole new angle on things.
Exactly. And for some people, this can lead to like spiritual growth, the sense of connection to something bigger than themselves, whether it's a higher power or universal consciousness, or just a deeper understanding of their place in like the grand scheme of things.
One of the sources you sent actually mentions a woman who, during an OBE, was finally able to let go of this really traumatic childhood experience. And she described it as being able to kind of observe the event from this detached, almost loving perspective and finally forgive herself and the others involved. A powerful example of how these experiences can be like so much more than just floating around.
That is a really powerful example, and it speaks to the potential for healing that many people associate with astral projection. There's this belief that by accessing this different state of consciousness, you can tap into this higher vibrational energy that can help facilitate, physical, emotional, even spiritual healing.
Okay, higher vibrational energy. That sounds a little esoteric. What does that actually mean?
It is a bit abstract, yeah. But think of it this way. Many cultures and spiritual traditions believe that we have these subtle energy bodies that are intertwined with our physical bodies. And if there's an imbalance in one, it can affect the other. And the idea is that in the astral realm, you can access and work with these subtle energies more directly. One of your sources describes it as being like tuning a musical instrument, bringing things back into harmony.
So it's not necessarily about miraculous cures, but more about working with these subtle energy systems to promote like a sense of balance and well-being.
Yeah, that's how a lot of practitioners see it. It's this holistic approach that recognizes that our physical, emotional, and spiritual selves are all connected.
That's fascinating. And then, of course, there's that whole potential benefit of overcoming the fear of death. That's something that I think resonates with a lot of people.
It's a very human concern, right? And the idea is that by experiencing consciousness outside of the body, it can provide a sense of reassurance, this glimpse that maybe death isn't the end, but just a transition to a different state of being.
I remember reading about a man who had this really profound near-death experience while he was undergoing surgery. And he said that during his OBE, he felt this like overwhelming sense of peace and love.
Mm.
And he was no longer afraid to die. It totally changed his perspective on life and gave him this newfound appreciation for every moment.
Those kinds of stories are amazing, aren't they? It's like they give us this little peek behind the curtain, this hint that consciousness might continue even after the physical body is gone.
So I'm sure by now everyone listening has a million questions. Luckily, the source material has a pretty comprehensive FAQ section. Should we dive into that?
Let's do it.
Okay. One of the first questions that always comes up is, how long does it take to actually learn to astral project? Everyone wants to know the shortcut.
Right. Everyone wants the quick and easy path. Well, the truth is, there's no easy answer. It's like any skill, right?
Yeah.
Some people seem to have a natural aptitude for it, while others need to practice a lot more. The sources really emphasize that there's no set time frame. It varies from person to person.
Totally. I've tried some of those meditation techniques that are supposed to help you astral project, and, I haven't had much luck. So I guess I'm in the needs more practice category.
All right, another question that comes up all the time is it dangerous?
It's a valid question.
Yeah.
But the sources we're looking at, they all seem to emphasize that it's generally safe, especially if you're practicing responsibly. And remember, the silver cord we talked about, that's like your built-in safety net.
Okay, that is reassuring. But, some people have reported feeling disconnected or even lost during an OBE. How does that fit in with the whole silver cord always bringing you back thing? Yeah, that's a great question. And it does highlight that there are still a lot of unknowns. While many experiences are positive and reassuring, others can be a bit more disorienting or even frightening. The sources do acknowledge that, and they encourage a cautious and respectful approach.
So not just like a free-for-all in the astral plane then.
Not exactly. It seems like there's a wisdom in approaching these experiences with a sense of humility and understanding that we're dealing with something that we don't fully comprehend.
That makes sense. All right, another big one that the FAQ addresses is, what if you encounter other beings in the astral realm? I mean, it makes for good sci-fi, but it also kind of freaks people out.
Yeah, it's definitely a common concern. But the sources suggest that encountering other beings is actually a pretty normal part of the experience. And these beings can be anything from other astral projectors to spirit guides, deceased loved ones, or even non-human entities. But here's the key. The sources emphasize that they cannot harm you. And often, they reflect your own thoughts, fears, or beliefs.
So it's almost like your inner landscape is being projected outward.
That's the idea. It's fascinating to think that the astral realm might be a mirror, reflecting our own consciousness back to us.
That is mind-blowing. Okay, last question from the FAQ. How do you actually remember your OBEs?
Yeah.
I imagine it would be so frustrating to wake up and have it all just fade away like a dream.
It definitely can be. The sources recommend a few things. Keep a dream journal by your bed and write down any memories, even if they're just fragments, as soon as you wake up. And then another tip is to really focus on recalling the experience right when you wake up, before those memories get crowded out by other thoughts.
It's almost like replaying it in your mind.
Yes. The more you engage with those memories, the more likely you are to hold on to them.
This has been such an awesome deep dive so far. We've explored the history, the techniques, personal experiences, practical tips. But I'm curious, in all your research and reading on this topic, is there anything that's really surprised you?
One of the things that really struck me was this idea that the astral plane isn't just one uniform place. Yeah, some sources actually describe it as having different levels, almost like layers of an onion.
Wait, astral onion layers. Okay, you've got to explain that.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So they describe the lower astral realms as being closely tied to the physical world, almost like a dreamlike version of familiar places. But as you move to higher levels, things become more abstract and symbolic, dealing more with archetypes and universal truths.
So it's like traveling through different dimensions of consciousness.
That's the idea. And while some sources do provide really detailed descriptions of these different realms, it's important to remember that it's all based on personal interpretations and experiences. There's no official map of the astral plane. It's a realm of infinite possibilities.
That makes it even more intriguing. And speaking of intriguing, some of the things that people claim to be able to do in the astral realm are pretty mind-boggling. Like flying, moving through solid objects, even visiting other planets.
It's easy to dismiss those accounts as fantasy, but what if our understanding of reality is just too limited? What if, different laws of physics or consciousness apply in the astral realm? We're talking about potentially expanding everything we think we know.
Yeah, it challenges us to rethink our assumptions about what's possible. I mean, if consciousness can exist outside of the body, who's to say what else might be possible?
It's a good point. It's this reminder that there's still so much we don't know about the nature of reality and what human consciousness is capable of.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a truly amazing deep dive. We've covered so much,
Yeah.
from the historical roots of astral projection to practical techniques, personal experiences, potential benefits, even the FAQ.
Yeah, it's a huge topic, and we've just scratched the surface.
So what's the takeaway here? I mean, if consciousness can exist outside of the body, what does that tell us about ourselves, about the nature of reality, about the limits of human potential?
I think those are the questions, aren't they? And I don't know that there are easy answers. Ultimately, those are the questions each of us has to wrestle with individually. We can look at the research, we can listen to other people's stories, we can experiment with the techniques, but I think the real journey is an inner one.
I love that. Well, you've given us all so much to think about, so many paths to explore. To everyone listening, if this topic has piqued your interest, don't stop here. Keep researching, keep an open mind, keep experimenting. Who knows? Maybe you'll make some incredible discoveries of your own in the world of astral projection. Thanks for joining us today on this deep dive. Until next time.